Hey guys, it's Ryan, and I'm going to show you how to create an area of effect skill that causes damage over time to hostile actors. So let's get started. First off, you want your texture. In this case, I'm using this Wind Spell Runic Circle by all credits to Celesta 1805, and you're going to want the standard package effects. So just import that into your project. We actually don't need a lot of this stuff, so we don't need that, we don't need that, we just need projectors. So go ahead and find that and make sure that's the only thing that's selected. So just click projectors there, and it's actually already inside my project, so I can't do anything, but just make sure it's just projectors because that's all we need. So let's get started by making this projector, which is actually going to be the area of effect icon thing that's going to be on the ground. It's going to be projected onto the ground. So in your standard assets folder that should have been made when you imported these standard assets projectors, we can just go ahead and drag the blob light out, and I'm going to put it at its origin, and we of course need to move it up so that it's projecting onto the ground. So I figure 15 is a good number, and we can go ahead and rename that. Well, I'm going to rename mine, and we want to change that to be our texture instead of just a white light. So let's do that. We have our texture, but what we need to do is create a material, and we need to set the shader to be one of the projector shaders. In this case I have a black background, so I'm going to use light. Also important, you need to set your texture's wrap mode to clamp. So what we can do here is just drag that on up there, and you'll get this thing. So that's our material. We can rename that to our AoE material, and on our projector here we need to set its material to be, instead of that light projector, to be our material that we just made, and that easily we have the projected area of effect image. So since that's already at the origin, we'll create another empty game object and just place it at the origin, and that is not looking centered at all. So yeah, that got moved somehow, so we'll just set that to be 0 again. There we go. Now we'll set the projector to be a child of that game object we just made, and we're also going to want some sort of collider so that we can know when a hostile actor is triggering or inside of that collider. So since my projector is projecting a circle-ish texture, I'm just going to create a sphere. I'll move it to the origin, and I will get rid of that mesh renderer, and on the sphere collider I'll put is trigger, and we'll just resize it to be about the size of our spell effect here. You can see it's a little off center, so I'm just going to move it down and resize it back up, just, you know, OCD kind of thing there. That looks good, looks perfect. We also want to set that to be a child of our game object. Now we can rename this to area of effect. Well, if I can spell correctly, there we go. And we can name this sphere to trigger, just so we know what it is more easily. So yeah, that's all we need there. We can go ahead and make that a prefab. Now let's make a skill. I already have it set here, so I'll just delete that and redo it with you guys. Add a new skill, area of effect, and we can actually just set the user activation to be passive, because we are going to find out who to cause damage to and how much damage on our own. The only thing we need to do is add one event, and that's going to be on skill activate, because we want to create that object that we just made. Just drag it up there, and if you need to download the extra blocks that is put up on the forum site, because we want to create it at position mouse hit point. And that's it. We're done with that. So going back to our area of effect here, we can delete it since we made a prefab of it. And we want to add a plyBlox component to it. On here, we need to create a few events. First one is going to be an onStart event. Second one is going to be an onUpdate event. And the third one is going to be a custom event. So let's just think about what we need to do. So already we have, when the player uses the skill, it creates an instance of this object that we have created. And we want it to follow along with the mouse. So obviously that's going to need to be done on an onUpdate event because it's going to follow the mouse every frame. And then when we click, we need to set that to be its final position so it doesn't follow the mouse anymore. So we'll just start off with the onStart event. We just need to set one variable, and we'll just call that final position because this is how we're going to check if it is or is not the final position. So that can just be a boolean. Its default is false, which is exactly what we want. So now if that variable is false, we need it to follow the mouse, and if it's true, we need it to not follow the mouse. So let's just go ahead and check that. So if the final position is false, then we want to set the position of itself to the mouse hit point. And now we need to check when to set it to be its final position. In my case, I'm just going to check to see if the mouse was left clicked. So we will set that variable final position to be true. Alright, two more things we need to do here. By default, we are going to disable that trigger collider that we made as a child of this game object. So here we want to enable that. So we'll just go to enable game object, and it is a child of this, so we will find a child, and I believe I named it trigger. So we're going to enable that. And we also want to call that custom event that we made. What we're doing here is setting how long the area of effect is going to be alive for. So I'll just call that event, which I haven't done yet, destroy self, and let's just say it's going to be alive for 6 seconds. So we need to rename this to destroy self. Yep. And obviously we're going to want to destroy. Alright, that's it for that. Now we need to add a plyBlox component to the trigger that we made. So let's expand that, go to trigger, add component, plyGame, plyBlox, and just 3 events as well here. On start, on update, and trigger with info on trigger enter. The with info is important. Alright, so let's think about what we want to do here. We want to check if whatever triggered this event, we need to check if it's a hostile actor. And we're also going to want to do some damage on an update. So we can just start off by creating a list. Now we need this list so that we can find all of the hostile actors that have entered the area of effect. Because in some cases it's going to be more than just one actor, so we can't just set it to only change the health of that one specific actor. We need to change the healths of multiple actors that we're going to store inside of this list. So we can go ahead and just call that targets, and that's it. That's all we need to do on start. But now we need to go to the trigger enter event and check if it's a hostile actor that has entered the trigger, because on trigger enter is called when another collider enters the trigger. So that could be many different things, and we only want it to we only want to give it some information when it's a hostile actor. So we can do that by seeing if the collider is an actor itself. So we need that variable trigger object, which is a game object. So if the trigger object is an actor, now we also need to check if it's a hostile actor, because we don't want our player to damage its allies or its buddies. So we can do that by using this handy block here, get status towards player. You can see we want to get the status of the trigger object. You can see that 0 is friendly, 1 is neutral, and 2 is hostile. So let's go ahead and use an integer of 2 because we want to check if it's a hostile actor. And then, if so, we need to add that actor to our list. Now, this will pretty much do it. However, this next part is however you want to cause damage to the hostile actors. In my case, I'm just going to tick damage over time. So we're going to need a variable to count down from, but we haven't set that. We didn't set that on start. We didn't set it on the plyBlox variables. So by default, it's not going to be there. So we can just check if it's not defined. So if some variable is not defined, and we can just name it tick because it's going to be ticking damage. And if it's not defined, then we want to set it to something. So we'll set tick to be, we need a float here. Let's see, 2. So it's going to tick every 2 seconds. And now we're going to set what it does when it ticks. So after the 2 seconds, we want to give it some information of what to do. Now, what we need to do on this onUpdate event is find every actor inside that list that we created, and each actor that enters the trigger, if you remember, gets added to this list. So we can just go back to common, or actually flow. We need the loop with each actor that's inside of this list. So loop with, and loop with the list. And then every actor inside of that list, we want to change his health. So now we need to find the actor inside of that list. So you can see here on the of, which is what we want to change, it needs to be a game object, but this list is just integers, but it stores the game objects, but we need to get it as a game object. So we'll go to common and as game object. And we need to get an integer from the list. And we need to access that variable counter here that's looping. So temporary variable needs to be an integer of that list targets. And I'm just going to change their health by -10. And then we also need to reset tick to happen again. So after the loop with, not inside the loop with, we need to set tick to 2, back to 2. And if everything is correct, that should do it. So here I just have if the action 1 goes down, let player use skill, area of effect. Make sure either auto learn is checked or your player knows the skill. So let's just double check that the skill spawns it, area of effect at mouse point. and let's test this out. So here in my scene, I just have my player and 2 enemies in hostile factions. So when I press 1, it should cause that. Oops. You know what we didn't do is disable that trigger. That is why we need to disable the trigger, and we need to enable it on the plyBlox here when we enable it, because it will just do all sorts of weird things. So now that it is disabled, things should work well. So we'll press 1. Yep, we can drag it around. We'll click where our hostile actors are. So click, move the mouse. It doesn't follow along. It should destroy itself after 6 seconds. And hey, looks like we're getting some errors there. So let's just go ahead and see what that's about. Failed to get value from list. Conversion failed. No big deal. We can fix that. Let's see what we did wrong. Oops. Oops, come on. I want to open up that console so I can see what exactly is going wrong there. Alright, so trigger on update. So here, something is going wrong. Actually, I'm not sure why I did that. I need to see that again. So I failed to get the value from list and the conversion failed. Okay, no big deal. We can fix that. Okay, so if the status, we're going to add it to the list of targets. And we're going to change the attribute consumable value of get value at any counter. Oh, you know what it is? On your loop width block, make sure you have 1 less checked. There we go. Now that should work now. I apologize for that, but shows you how to do a little bit of debugging there, because it's going to happen no matter what. It happens to me all the time. You just got to, see where you went wrong. There is where I went wrong. So we'll click. It should destroy itself after 6 seconds, and it should tick their health down. Right, so let's check our enemies here. Their health is still 50. Health is still 50. Okay. So some more debugging. No big deal. Let's check to see if this gets called. Common debug. Ticked. Copy. Paste. Let's see. Hostile actor. Trigger. Alright, so let's just see which one doesn't get called. Well, the hostile actor triggered, and it ticked. Strange. So they both worked. So obviously, oh, there we go. Not sure what happened, but now it is working. Strange, but you'll see that it ticked 2 seconds, every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, and that last tick, I know you would think it would count, but the variables aren't exactly timed up perfectly, so it only ticked twice because it was maybe 0.02 seconds too late, so it didn't tick. But it works, and that is how you set that up. So thank you guys for watching.